I think the difficult thing too is it's not just random trolls. Sometimes it's people that that feel emboldened to say things to you that they wouldn't say to your face in real life. I have really had to learn to set boundaries about things. There are ways to talk about this that aren't disrespectful. And I think the world is really, really struggling with this right now in real time. I think people have lost the ability to talk to each other. People just, they don't know how to listen to each other anymore on both sides.
People don't know how to disagree. They don't know how to be okay with somebody else having a differing opinion. I feel like we've all had to discover our own boundaries around social media.
Agreed.
Welcome to Drinks with the Girls. Conversations for women over 40 around connection, change, and the power of female friendship. Living well with stories to tell. I'm Karen, and this is Lisa.
We are moms and solopreneurs stepping into our own, diving into real conversations about things that matter to women in midlife.
We're here to spill the tea on everything that affects women in their 40s and beyond. Topics like loss and grief, changing relationships, launching kids, menopause, and reinventing ourselves in midlife. We are here to tackle it all.
Connect with us through a blend of our lived experiences, our friendship, the memory of our moms, plus a collection of real stories, honest conversations, and engaging interviews that will make women over 40 feel seen and remind them that they're not alone on this journey called life. Let's go.
Welcome back, everyone, to Drinks with the Girls, the podcast that feels like chatting with your besties. Hey, Lisa, what's in your glass tonight?
Okay, so I have been in this daily struggle about like wine, no wine. Yes, no, we have an episode coming out about the Surgeon General's findings on alcohol. And so for everybody wondering if we're just like being tone deaf, we are absolutely not. We've got an episode planned, but it's definitely something I've been thinking about. And after a rough day, I was very close to pouring a glass and then decided that opening a bottle was just not worth the effort. So went with a concoction of healthy greens, sparkling water, collagen, and I don't know, some other shit I put in there. I've lost track.
It's funny that you talk about the alcohol piece because I have been on the hunt for mocktails that, taste good, that I can, because for me, it's about a habit. Instead of just pouring a glass of wine while I'm making dinner, it's like, why can't I pour something else? And sometimes I do my sparkling water, but it's like, fair.
Yep.
So I've been looking at different brands and I have one tonight. It's by Recess and it's mood. This one's for your mood. It has magnesium and adaptogen and it is a sparkling water. It has, some, as you call it, zhuzh in it. And it actually tastes pretty good. It's peach ginger. So I know they have a line of mocktails as well. And I am going to look into those. So
that sounds cool. It sounds kind of like the hop water that Andrea Samadi on our neuroscience podcast was drinking. I've actually been checking out non-alcoholic wines and beers because my husband doesn't drink. And I've had near beer and it's actually really freaking good. They're up here. They've got some really like next level stuff. The wine, from what I have researched so far, leaves a lot to be desired. They're still trying to work on that. I have not had non-alcoholic spirits, but I've heard those are pretty good too. So, I mean, I think everybody's catching up with the idea that, we need to push the envelope just in terms of non-alcoholic options for everyone.
Yeah, I think the only options for a while was O'Doul's in terms of non-alcoholic beers. And
which is gross.
I have people in my family who are sober. So when I host events, I try really hard to find, some non-alcoholic beers and IPAs and whatnot. And yeah, surprisingly, there are some good ones out there. So
highly recommend Athletic Brewing. Super delicious. And they have a lot of different, like they have a lager and an IPA. They even have like a cerveza and a few other things. And they have a seasonal one. It's pretty good.
Now, this is a listener requested episode. So this is fun for us. And by the way, we love it when you guys give us feedback, but also when you request certain episodes. So keep it coming. If you have something on your heart or your mind you would like Drinks with the Girls to tackle, we are all for it. We're super excited to dive into this topic, although it is kind of a heavy one, but one I think that's important to unpack, and that is bullying.
Specifically, this listener requested an episode to talk about bullying, not just with kids in schools, but in general. So we're going to dive into that because bullying is frankly everywhere. Sadly, it's in schools, workplaces, online, politics. It's just seems to have kind of seeped and oozed into so many parts of our lives these days.
I agree, and we'll dive into all that, but I think that with social media and with certain people being in the media and normalizing bullying, I think it's just the trickle down effect. So when there's bullying happening at the top, everybody thinks it's okay.
Yep.
Anywho, when we think of bullying, we usually just think of kids on the playground, right? But, like we've talked about, adults are dealing with it too. And I think online bullying is something that most people that are online, if you have a business like Lisa and I do, it's always in the back of my mind. So, what do you think, Lisa? Do you think about online bullying much, or have you ever been bullied online?
I think a lot of people are really questioning their relationship with social media right now because of bullying. And I know for me, I definitely I think twice before I get in a conversation on social media, unless I know the person really well. I'll just say that. And I think that as adults, we have a little bit more of an ability to do that, but it's kids that I worry about in terms of being safe online and knowing how to spot trolls, bullies, or worse. And unfortunately, the stats bear me out because apparently 20% of the students in the US report being bullied. And to be completely honest, I think that's low. I really do. I think it's much higher than that because they're just talking about kids that are reporting being bullied.
Yeah.
I would bet that that's at least triple, honestly. I'm sad to say, but
Yeah, that's a good point, and I think that's one of the ways bullying kind of grows is because people don't speak up, they don't report it, they don't talk about it, and I think it's like a mushroom, it grows better in the dark.
mhm.
It can take so many different forms too, because there's obviously the physical stuff, like I remember in high school, the fights, people would break into the fights. But there's also the verbal bullying, the social bullying, the cyberbullying, and each one of those can leave deep scars, even the ones that are not the physical one, right?
Yeah, sometimes I feel like it's almost worse with those, to be honest. And for kids, it's not just hurt feelings in the moment. Bullying can really lead to long term issues like anxiety, depression, and even lower academic performance. It can really shape their sense of self worth. My daughter endured absolutely merciless, like Game of Thrones level bullying for the last 3 years in middle school. I don't know which one of us was happier to see middle school end, her or me. And honestly, it made her get to the point where she was starting fights. And let me be clear, I do not condone violence of any form at all. But honestly, I got to the point where if she didn't feel protected or safe at school, what else was she supposed to do? If she didn't feel that way, she was going to make sure she was protected, right? So at a certain point, it was really tough for me to kind of be like, oh, you shouldn't do that when she felt like she was fighting for her life, literally. So now we are trying to help her unwind 3 years of constant trauma, and it's awful. It is absolutely heart wrenching. And sadly, her story is not unique. There are so many reasons why it's gotten worse in the last decade. In my business outside the podcast, I work with a lot of schools. I will be working with a lot of parents when I start my membership, which, by the way, little plugs, Empowered Parent Collective coming to you March 11th in the show notes. But so I see this all the time. And in the last decade, I think it has just gotten really, really horrific. And from the pandemic, right? Causing a whole generation of kids to come to school without just basic social skills, to them looking around at social media, celebrities, politicians who can model cruel and nasty behavior towards people they've just decided to pick on or even cancel, or because it's Wednesday and they've just decided to be mean. And kids don't have the benefit of having life experience and filters that a good many adults have to really understand all that. So it's terrifying, frankly.
Yeah, and I mean, I alluded to this earlier, and we don't talk much about politics on this podcast because we don't.
That's a whole rabbit hole.
But I mean, we have a president that literally bullies. He talks about the way people look or the way that they sound or things about, their person.
I have feelings on that, which I will just leave there so we don't go headlong into politics in America, because we also know we have listeners all over the world.
My name is Karen Shatafian, and I am a shameless coffee addict and empowerment coach for women, and my love language is authenticity. My mission is helping women unapologetically design a life they're in love with. Because what the hell are we waiting for? My website, KarenShatafian.com, has all my coaching packages and free offers like my midlife reclamation guide. In it, you'll find tools to help you decide how to create the most inspired and empowered version of yourself and your life. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram talking about ways women can show up for themselves after decades of showing up for everyone else. Join me as we throw off the shackles and live our best freaking lives. See the show notes for all the details. Cheers. And I feel for your daughter. I understand when you say that, she had to kind of take more of the offense instead of just playing defense. I was bullied in high school, and I used to have these two girls that would show up at my English class. I was a sophomore, and I don't even remember at the time like what they were giving me crap about. But it's like it was so awful. And I felt helpless. I didn't know what to do. Nobody was there to help me. So it was me against these two girls. And then finally, after weeks and weeks of this, I finally just said, well, let's just fight then. Let's go. Let's just do it. Because I was tired of being scared, So I felt like if I could take the offense, then I at least felt like I had a little semblance of power. And then, of course, they backed down. So
naturally,
it worked out at the time, but I feel for kids who deal with that because it takes a toll on your mental health.
So, longtime listeners may know we like to talk about our moms on the podcast because they are a big part of our story. See our first episode. And one of my favorite stories about my mom was I was bullied like Karen in middle school, and it was just brutal stuff. And there was one particular girl that was just horrible. So, okay, now remember, this is the 80s, right? When you could do this. Nobody could do this then. My mom went to school without telling me and pulled the girl out of class.
Oh, Renee.
Oh, yeah, baby. Renee. I know. And met with her and the counselor. Like, she didn't take her out the back woodshed or anything like that. And oh my God, I just love her. And was like, do you have any idea what this is doing to my daughter? This is what I'm seeing. Like, she's coming home in tears. Da, da, da. And of course, the girl dissolved in tears and had a horrible home life. But I was just like, my mom is the biggest fucking badass. Like, I love that story because Karen knows she kind of had a reputation as being kind of softly. She was, but there were a few times in her life where she took no bullshit. And so that is one of my favorite memories of her doing that.
I think our moms were similar in that respect because they were pretty, soft-spoken. They didn't, take up much space. But man, when they had something to say or when they got pissed, look out.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
The other thing with bullying is the whole piece of the bystanders. It's the people that are standing around seeing the things happening and knowing it's wrong, but they either feel helpless or they feel the pressure to join in. Think that bullying really affects everybody involved, including the bystanders.
And arming kids, especially with the skills to kind of figure that out. I mean, that is not an easy situation to be in, for sure. But here's the other thing. Unfortunately, I hate to say that bullying has evolved because that makes it seem like it's gotten better, but it's still around as we get older. Workplace bullying is a huge issue. As Karen said, we really try to avoid talking about politics on this podcast because that's just a whole other rabbit hole. But there definitely is a trend in this idea of people being bullies to other people as a way to kind of communicate and get people to back down. Not going to touch that with the 10-foot pole, but we'll just leave it there. Have you ever experienced workplace bullying, Karen?
I have not, but you have to remember too, I spent most of my career staying home with my kids. So if you include them bullying me, then I definitely had.
Little demons.
But no, fortunately, I never experienced workplace bullying. And, this can take on different forms. It can look like bosses who use intimidation tactics to maintain control. It's totally demoralizing. And it's not just bosses, though, coworkers. It can be just as bad, like spreading rumors or excluding you from projects. And at the end of the day, it's all about power dynamics.
Yep. Research shows that workplace bullying can lead to burnout, higher turnover rates, and mental health challenges. And unfortunately, I am truly sad to say that I was a victim of a massive bullying cover up at a workplace I was at. And unfortunately, I was a whistleblower in a federal anti-discrimination lawsuit because I spoke up. And I am well aware that discrimination is not the same as bullying. Those are two separate things. But I would say that the behavior that I experienced was definitely bullying. And it was pretty brutal. I had moved up to a different state to work for this company. And they, all the stuff, the gaslighting, the just nasty comments, the, making me feel like I was the one that was crazy. And I'll dive into that at another time. But I really feel for people who are trying to figure out a way to speak up because the system does not support that. And it certainly did not support me. I mean, I almost had to declare bankruptcy and I was one of the quote unquote winners in terms of I fought it and got a judgment about it. But the other thing is, this was all before social media exploded. So I can't even fathom what it would have been like if that had been around when I was going through this, because this was all kind of done through the court system and there was kind of a structure to it. But it's a free for all these days on social media.
Oh, for sure. And I think that's one of the reasons people don't speak up or they don't step in when there's bullying going on because they're afraid of the retribution. They're afraid of consequences. They're afraid of what are people going to say? What is my company going to do? How did you maintain your mental health while you were going to work, or did you leave the company while this was all going on?
Well, in short, I didn't maintain my mental health. I they fired me because I was starting to make some noise, right? I was trying to toe the line. That was a rough period because I was by myself in a strange city trying to deal with all this. They fired me and I was frankly waiting tables to get by. And all the friends that I had at work, which were pretty much who I had in the world up there, were terrified for their jobs. So it was a super, super lonely time in my life. I was extremely depressed and felt very vulnerable and very, very fragile. I didn't, is the short answer in terms of mental health.
Yeah.
And this was before social media and all that crap went down. So I just, yeah, I suppose I should be grateful I was spared that piece.
Yeah. Social media is a whole other ball of wax, right? I mean, I think it's a breeding ground for bullies because people feel emboldened behind a screen. They feel like they have the permission to say things they would not normally say to somebody's face. Yeah, it's exhausting. And those of us that use social media and have to be on social media more than normal for business are specifically at risk of burnout because it's just, I feel like I'm constantly having to watch what I say, how I say it. And, I had somebody engage with one of my posts today and it felt like a bait on a hook. And I thought, I in my mind, I was coming up with all these different things I could say. And then I thought, you know what? I'm just not. I'm just silence is the best medicine. I'm just not even going to
Mhm.
respond.
I think the difficult thing too is it's not just random trolls. Sometimes it's people that that feel emboldened to say things to you that they wouldn't say to your face in real life. And there's this weird dynamic where people are just like, "Hey man, just keeping it real, sharing our opinion." But they're being really cruel and nasty. And I have really had to learn to set boundaries about things that include number 1, not going down political rabbit holes, because that never ends well. And really, the other rule I try to abide by is it's one thing if I'm on my own feed, it's quite another if I'm on somebody else's feed. And if they are asking questions that I'm responding to, I try to keep it respectful to them. And I was in a situation where I have a friend, dear friend for a long time, but we're definitely on different ends of the political spectrum. But I respect her. She's a fellow special needs mama, and she's always been good to me. And while I don't agree with her views, I'm not going to be nasty to her. And I made a comment that wasn't nasty at all, but definitely wasn't, yes, I support this kind of a thing. And I tried to do it in a respectful way. And a lot of people on her feed just went nuts on me. And thankfully, we have a good enough relationship that she was like, okay, enough. Like,
Yeah.
she can have a different opinion and nobody needs to crucify her. And she ended up shutting off the comments and we kind of took it offline. But, and both of us were just like, look, it's okay that we're on different sides of the political spectrum because there's a genuine love there and we would take a bullet for each other. There are ways to talk about this that aren't disrespectful. And I think the world is really, really struggling with this right now in real time. I think people have lost the ability to talk to each other, certainly in politics, but I think we all think not twice, but 5 times before we share something because of the way social media has exploded, because people they don't know how to listen to each other anymore on both sides.
Yeah, no, for sure. People don't know how to disagree. They don't know how to be okay with somebody else having a differing opinion. And I mean, I disagree. I see people posting stuff all the time that I feel like it literally is just to get people to to engage and kind of go down that rabbit hole. I mean, maybe not. Maybe.
Well, I'm not disagreeing with you there, but I guess what I'm saying is it's one thing if I post an opinion on my own feed. It's
Oh,
quite another if I am being nasty to someone on their feed about something that they're posting,
Oh, yeah.
and that's just, I mean, people do that for sure. That's just a rule I have for myself.
Hey, Fabulous Drinks with the Girls listeners, guess what? We have something exciting happening here at Drinks with the Girls. We have a way for you, our listeners, to be involved. We would love you to be a part of our Drinks with the Girls support team. Creating a sisterhood of empowered women is our goal, and we are so grateful you are here. But we need your help to grow this incredible community that we have a big and bountiful vision for.
You can help us get the word out about Drinks with the Girls because we want all women to feel the support of our powerful community behind them. Here's what you need to do. Go to your favorite podcast platform and subscribe or follow Drinks with the Girls if you haven't already. We need you to share every episode we put out.
We would love for you to do this, especially when a particular episode resonates with you and or brings to mind someone you care about that you think would benefit from listening to it. Share with a girlfriend via text, share to your email newsletter, share on your socials, share from the rooftop. Every share is a chance for all women around the world to feel connected and supported by our Drinks with the Girls sisterhood.
The other thing you can do is officially join our Pod Squad email list. That will help you in 2 ways. First off, every time a new episode drops, you'll get an email with info on the topic, so it reminds you to tune in and listen with an easy-to-follow link. But it's also an easy format to hit forward on and share with some of your favorite people so they can easily access the newest episode. That link is always included in our show notes for you.
We are so excited to have you as part of the Drinks with the Girls Pod Squad support team. We are all in this together. Cheers.
Cheers.
I was referring to people who do the original post.
Gotcha.
But they do it in such a divisive way and they do it in such an activating way that, and I've had to, like you, it's like, I feel like we've all had to discover our own boundaries around social media.
Agreed.
Especially with the political climate. I just don't comment. I just can't. And it's hard. And I think it was 2020 when I had posted something, then you get all the back and forth and the back and forth. Like, I had to remind people, this is my feed. These are my opinions.
Exactly.
This is my feed. And if you don't like it, get the fuck off.
Yeah.
Go post whatever you want on your feed. But my feed is not here for a political debate of any kind. My feed is here for me and me to express my feeling.
that's kind of what I was saying from the other end. I don't engage when I'm just like, I don't want to deal with this. But if I do engage and it's on somebody else's feed, in my mind, I'm going to be respectful of
For sure.
what they have to say. And how long have we been talking about this one thing right now in this episode? Like people are struggling with this. It is a big problem. And I mean, to me, I feel like society right now is just really having a reckoning with this, and nobody has some good answers about how to really do this. But my friend and I, when we were having this conversation, we ended up by saying, we have got to figure out how to talk to each other.
Yeah.
Period. End of story. And again, both sides. If we are not as a society able to talk to each other respectfully, Rome's going to burn, man.
What you do in person. We do in person.
Yep.
We are able to have discussions and even disagreements in person. And I think, I have several people in my life that do not align with my political views at all. And it is a challenge. I think it's just interesting to notice, in your situation, and I had this happen on one of my posts a couple years ago, how people feel emboldened to comment, even though, your friend, they're friends of your friend, right? If they were in a conversation, if you guys were all standing around, would they really come up to your face and say those things? I doubt it. It's just, it's wild. And we're adults. So having to navigate this as a child.
And to your point earlier about when you were bullied and you were just like, all right, let's go, biatch, and they backed down, right?
Yeah.
That is another thing that worries me, because kids are holed up in their rooms on screens talking to each other that way instead of in real life. And the dynamic is just fucked up.
Yeah.
I mean, it is rough. Like, you don't have that opportunity. One of the things that, and I kind of digress a bit, but we love our rabbit holes on Drinks with the Girls. One of the things I really love about the school that my daughter's going to now is they teach a protocol for conflict. And I'll screw it up. There's some kind of cool acronym about like what each piece means, but they teach kids coming into the school, like, this is the protocol that we use for working out issues. Use it with your friends. This is what your teachers are going to use. Like, and I'm like, that is freaking genius. And I'll tell you what, there's no bullying at that school. I'm not even kidding you, because they have put together this protocol for it. It's incredible.
In my former life, and when I was an elementary school counselor, I had a conflict management program, and I would train the students to be conflict managers so they could help their peers work out their conflicts. And I can't remember the acronym if I in fact used one, but I think it is a very important thing to do, to empower students to, first of all, with the skills, and then second of all, with the practice.
Yeah, the pandemic has a lot to answer for. We like to blame the patriarchy on this podcast, but I don't know, another P word, like the pandemic. Yeah, that's a whole other topic. Anywho,
here's the thing too. There are so many different forms of bullying that we don't even recognize, like passive aggressive behavior, for instance, right? It's subtle, but it's meant to undermine someone's confidence, like gaslighting, all that crap.
Or exclusion, whether it's on the playground, in a friend group, or even at work, intentionally leaving someone out can be deeply damaging. I mean, hello, the whole, oh, I didn't get invited, I'm the only one in the class that didn't get invited to the birthday party. I mean, there's adult versions of that, and it's hurtful.
It still goes on as adult. That's why the movie Mean Girls was such a thing, and still is. And gossip, obviously, that we know this as adults, right? Gossip is one of those other ones, and it's easy to brush off as harmless, but when it's done to hurt someone intentionally or hurt their reputation, it's a form of bullying also.
I think that people could construe micromanaging as bullying in a workplace. I remember when I had my first job out of college, I had a micromanager for a boss, and it was so frustrating to me. And, I was fresh out of college. Like, this was my first work experience, and I didn't know how to stand up for myself, but I learned quickly. And I can remember not my boss, but another person in the office made some nasty comment to me about like, do you even know anything? And I can tell you that I started getting a backbone at that very moment. That I am convinced led me to where I am. And I remember, and I don't know why all of a sudden I was like, and I'm done. But I remember standing up, going from my reception desk to her office and saying something to the effect of, you know, no, I don't know where the CEO is. And no, he doesn't tell me where he is. He's not on a leash and I don't manage him. So, yes, it is possible that I don't know what's going on and that he hasn't told me. And you don't need to treat me like that. And I'm paraphrasing, but she backed down. She was like, you're right. I'm sorry. And ever since then, I've been growing growing a pair ever since, but I can really remember how I felt in my body, and it was just like, "No." And for whatever reason, that particular instant just pushed me over the edge, and I'm like, and I'm done, right? And, of course, I'm a lot stronger now at 56, and I can push back, but it's alive and well in the workplace.
I think also people need to be called on their bullshit. Like,
Mhm.
I think people get into these toxic patterns and of behavior, and it just people let it slide. So I think, you standing up to her, and, people's kids standing up to bullies on the playground, whatever, I think as hard and as scary as that can be, number one, it empowers the person, but also it calls the bully on their bullying. And like your experience, maybe she didn't even know she was doing it. Maybe that's just how she is, but she gets away with it. And so they need to stop getting away with it.
Totally, setting a boundary. Hey there, I'm Lisa Corachella McDowell, your midlife Pacific Northwest princess, here to guide you in the art of next leveling your life. I'm passionate about women's health and wellness in midlife, especially for moms parenting kids with unique needs like I do. I truly believe we can learn, grow, advocate, and care for the planet while taking care of ourselves and our families. And I'd love to help you do the same. Plus, I'm beyond excited to announce the launch of my new membership, the Empowered Parent Collective, this March. It's a space for parents to confidently advocate for their kids, build inclusive communities, educate themselves, and find balance and support along the way. To find out more about the Empowered Parent Collective, my classes, wellness offerings, parenting tips, advocacy resources, and exclusive Drinks with the Girls goodies, head to nextlevellifewithlisa.com. Let's survive and thrive in the messy middle together. Cheers.
Okay, so let's talk about some solutions. How do we handle bullies, no matter what setting it's in, right? So, one strategy that stands out is speaking up and setting boundaries, whether it's a kid on the playground, a coworker, but letting them know that their behavior isn't acceptable. That can be really powerful. And it's not easy to do, especially if we are not outspoken people by nature, right? But like in Lisa's case, she walked away feeling empowered. And I think we need more of that.
Yeah, I would say that stooping to bullying back is not acceptable either. And that's what's tough is it inspires these emotional responses, right? But as much as you can to keep it factual and set the boundary that way. And I also think that teaching kids about empathy and emotional intelligence early on, because these are not easy concepts, right? As adults, we get intimidated. As adults, we struggle with what to say. So, the tiny humans and the bigger tiny humans, no wonder they don't have the skills to do that. It's something that they have to learn. And that was one of the things that used to just drive me crazy about the stuff going on at my daughter's school is they would say, well, she needs to advocate for herself. And I was like, she doesn't have the skills to do that. And you're punishing her because she doesn't. So don't sit there and tell me she doesn't have the right to stand up for herself if nobody else is going to. Like, these are not easy things to teach kids. And I think that the push in the schools now for social emotional curricula and work is so important because we just assume that kids learn this at home or have the ability to do that. And the fact of the matter is they just don't. But
Is there a push for that now in education? Because I know the district that I used to work for, just kept cutting their counseling programs and whatnot. And I know it's hard in education. Like, the job is to educate kids. But, to your point, there is that social emotional piece that goes along with it.
I think what I see is not so much like, don't get me wrong, I haven't seen an elementary school with a full-time counselor in decades. Like,
That was my
period.
dream job.
Yeah.
It was
Like,
a dream.
yeah. Yep. And it's too bad because that probably would stop a lot of the crap going on. But that being said, what I have seen in my work with schools is actual curriculum and actual specific teachings about social emotional intelligence and what that looks like, and climate surveys, right? So that they don't just assume kids are just happy and everything's going fine. They're actually using data. So I still don't think we're there, but I think that it's become so, I mean, hello, school shootings, things of, I mean,
Yeah.
that's the nth degree of bullying, right? Like
Yeah,
that is
absolutely.
what, so schools realize that they absolutely have to start somewhere, and they can't just like sweep it under the rug and not doing anything about it. So I think at least we're starting the freaking conversation.
And I think it's important too, like on a practical level, whether it's an adult in the workplace or a kid in a school, it's to have documentation. And in order to have documentation, you have to tell somebody. So as hard as it is for kids or for an adult to tell somebody to talk about it, I feel like I'm a tattletale. I'm afraid of retribution and all that. But it's creating that paper trail, I think, that can help the administration or the higher ups actually kind of do something about it.
Yeah, 100%. And I will tell you, back to my lawsuit for a second, that was key. I kept detailed notes about conversations and times and dates of what was said, and I just had a little logbook, and that was pretty critical. There was another incident separate from this when I was out of school, and I had a coworker that was trying to take me out, and the fact that I was so well documented is what saved me. So I would encourage anybody that's in that situation in a workplace to document as much as they possibly can. Now, that being said, that's in the workplace, right? It's a different story. When we're talking about online, and we've talked about this a lot on this episode, when it comes to online bullying, sometimes the best approach, like Karen says, is just don't engage. Don't feed the trolls. Like I have to actively tell myself, like, nope, not going to go there. As much as I would like to feel like this is going to be a respectful conversation, that's just not a guarantee these days on social media. And I know now it's just not worth my energy. So I really try to sit myself down and be like, yeah, this is not going here. So you can block, you can report, or you can just move on. Those are all perfectly acceptable things to do. You don't have to engage with someone like that.
Absolutely. And I think one of the most important pieces in all of this, whether it's with an adult or with a child, is to get support. Like if bullying is going to a level that is harming your mental health, your child's mental health, get some support, whether it's a counselor, HR at work. But the isolation and the solitude you feel when you are being bullied is so damaging. And I think putting it out into the light, letting somebody know, you're struggling, getting some support for your kids, if it's your child at school, just think getting support is really, really important. And giving kids the tools, like maybe even reaching out to some kind of a counselor or a therapist to teach your child conflict management skills or empowerment skills or taekwondo or something, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I have a funny story about that. So that was middle school, but in elementary school, I want to say third grade, there was a boy that was bullying her and bullying her. And, some of you who have listened to the podcast might know that my daughter is no shy flower, the redhead that's now pink. And one day, that little taekwondo girl just punched the kid and dropped him, literally dropped him. And I got the call from the principal. And, my husband and I were like, yeah, you can't do that. But we were literally like, you poke the bear. I don't know what to tell you. And shockingly, he never bothered again. I'm sure the fact that she decked him in front of the entire school probably had something to do with it. But there you go. Now, the other thing I want to say is in terms of HR, I will just be brutally honest and say, in my case with this particular company, HR was pretty complicit in everything that was going on. I mean, it was a very, very, very toxic atmosphere. So one resource I want to tell y'all about, if God forbid you are experiencing this, is the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. Even if you aren't sure that what you are experiencing is the result of being a member of a protected class, reach out to them. Like I said, I am aware discrimination is not bullying and bullying is not discrimination. They're two separate things, but it can definitely take on a bullying aspect if you are experiencing that. So my advice to you, because at one point I had 3 lawyers from the EEOC working on my case with my lawyer. That's the level it had gone to. But they are equipped to sort out fact from fiction if you're well documented. So if you even suspect that that's something that's going on, they are a good resource. The other thing I want to say, like we've talked about, is if you are supporting a child who's being bullied, help them to understand what they can do. Educate them about the idea of quote unquote telling on someone and what the difference is between being retaliatory with that and reporting as an ally or a victim. And like Karen said, teaching kids to seek help is just as crucial. They need to know they're not alone and that it's okay to ask for support.
Yeah. So let's wrap this up with 5 key takeaways for dealing with bullying.
Number 1, boundaries. Set clear ones. Let the bully know that their behavior isn't acceptable.
Yeah. Number 2, teach and practice empathy. That emotional intelligence can prevent bullying from starting in the first place and also empower the bystanders to intervene.
Number 3, document incidents, especially for workplace or ongoing bullying. Having a record is crucial. Like I said, in the situations I was in, I mean, it saved my bacon. My bacon needed saving.
Okay. And number 4, disengage from online bullies. You don't have to respond. You can just keep scrolling, block them. You can report them. Just make sure you protect your mental health at all costs.
And number 5, seek support, whether it's a friend, a family member, or a professional counselor. You don't have to handle this alone.
That's right. And you always have us here at Drinks with the Girls. So thank you, everyone, for listening. If you found any little juicy nuggets in this episode, do us a favor, share with a girlfriend. We want all women around the world to feel the support of the amazing Drinks with the Girls girl gang behind them.
Yes, and a special shout out to our listener whose name escapes me at this point, but you know who you are, for suggesting this episode. Like Karen said at the top of the episode, we love it when we get topics suggested. First of all, because you guys have good ideas. Second of all, because then it means we don't have to come up with them. And we try our best.
Keep them coming. Keep them coming.
Yeah, we try our best to have good guests on and have engaging topics, but my God, that's just manna from heaven when we get listener requests. So please share on your social media account, share the link in a text or an email. Like the outro says, we do have a pod squad. And what's nice about that is every week you get an email with the particular link to whatever episode is happening that just dropped. And it's super easy to share. So that's a really good way you can stay connected. But please follow, share, like, and leave us a review as well. We're going to say good evening for now, everybody. So cheers.
Cheers, everybody.